Welcome everyone, and welcome to Bridges Live Presents Voices to be Heard with Dr.Paul, Dyer, and Tamara, Randolph. And we're also missing our other co-host, Lynn Twyman. But we come back at least twice a month to talk about domestic issues. You know, sometimes we got to stop using the words that we don't want to create, and that's domestic violence. But it is about something going wrong, and I don't know if a better way to say it than it is violent. But most people keep thinking violent is something about punching holes through walls, and it's not. Tamara, what do you say about that?
Yeah, violence, like you said, isn't just about the physical violence or something that is tangible and we can actually see. So do I have to see blood to know that there was an injury? No. And that is exactly what you alluded to. Violence is mental, emotional, spiritual. It's a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily need a tangible thing to be seen. And that's the part I think that oftentimes is missed and overlooked, because if I can't see that you are hurt, oftentimes I don't think you really are.
Right.
And that can kind of be attributed to a number of things in life, not to get off on a tangent, but specifically for our conversation today with violence. It's not just the physical abuse that we can actually see, but emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, it can all take a negative effect on us.
Let's go with, I think, when it comes to this domestic issue of disruption, right? Domestic disruption. I think that's a great way we could put it, because what is disrupted can be violent and it cannot be as violent, right? But it's still a domestic disruption. When we call something that we are going into a union and we hand over a lot of things of ourselves, right? We hand over my belongings is your belongings, my house is your house, all those very cute things to say. Let's start this together. Let's start this family together. Let's start living together. You can stay home with the kids no matter what the sex is, and I will go to work. But then domestic disturbance comes in, and then another partner says, I've never had anything. And then there becomes a problem with, wait a minute, I thought we went into this domestication together, this partnership, where one decided to do this, you agreed, I decided to do this, you agreed, and now that it's a domestic disturbance, I wasn't allowed. Now people can start saying I wasn't allowed to do anything. How does one navigate that? I think that's tough for people.
Yeah, I think that is tough. And oftentimes, I think right now, which is something that's very popular, is like making you aware of red flags, right?
Right.
So oftentimes it's not anything that comes out blatant right away. Mm-hmm. It's something that kind of accrues over time. So you can see that. I feel like, just to kind of like backtrack a little bit, going into any partnership, it should be two individuals, right?
Right.
And we should be able to join as said individuals, bringing our whole selves, our whole, all of our experiences, all of our personality. We should be able to figure out a way to make those things mesh. And in those partnerships, it shouldn't be you have to get rid of your total self in order for this partnership to work. That's just, I feel like that's the sign of abuse. If I can't be myself, then
right.
What's the purpose of this relationship?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like that part starts a little, it can start a little earlier, where you'll see signs of, I don't want you to, or you can't go, or and maybe it's not coming out as verbal and as direct as you can't go, but that if, for example, like if I go to I play softball. So if I go to play softball, when I come back, there's going to be an issue because...
There you go, playing again. I didn't know you were playing. What do you mean you didn't know? Like, what?
There will be an issue because I went to play softball. Also that you knew that, because that's a part of communication communication is very important no matter what relationship. So that's friendship, like lover, co-worker, boss, relationships.
I know men have fall into the trap of I don't bring anything to the table, or I don't feel I bring enough, or I don't feel I should be bringing more. Especially when it comes to you beautiful, strong women, you're like, I don't need you to bring something. I just need you to show up. So what is that saying?
Yeah, I just need you to show up. I think the thing that I love about us strong women is that we've developed into a species that we don't need the man or our significant other to survive.
Right.
So that survival mode, I think, is a little different, definitely more recently, because it used to be I need to get with my partner in order to sustain any type of livelihood. But now we running a lot of stuff, so as nicely as I can put that.
You can put it any way you want. Because I think your hand said it enough. Okay. You're like, we're running shit, right?
All that, okay. And so since you said it, exactly what you said. But we also want that companionship. Right. We want a man to support us, and we also want to support a man. Like for me, I feel like one of my love languages is to make my partner, my significant other, my man, feel supported and feel uplifted. Like if he don't need to go nowhere else to feel great, because at home, I want to make sure that he feels like he's the bomb. Mm-hmm. And any struggles, if you've had a long day, come on home. If you need to cry, if we need to just hug this out, or whatever else we need to do, that at home is a safe space. And I think that home and whatever, kind of figuratively that means, right. Home should be a safe place where you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And then because this world is mean, and outside of our home and our loved ones and all of that, everyone else, can often feel like they're against us. But when we get home it should be a safe place where we feel comforted, where we feel comfortable, where we can let our guard down. And, like whatever it is, let it go. But when we get home, we finally feel like a sense of relief.
Do you think that's possible where a disconnect can actually happen? I was thinking about when you were saying home and how it generates a feeling inside of me. Mm-hmm. In the times in my life I have never felt home, right? The uneasiness, the skittishness of like, it's not that I don't feel safe, I just don't feel home. And that word home, a lot of people probably get missed of that feeling because maybe they didn't come from a home.
Yeah.
So now the home is actually a perceived fantasy.
Yeah.
It's not even realistic.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that is it. But I feel like if I had never felt home growing up,
right.
I would be surprised when I did, and I could also feel a false sense of home, because I'm like, I don't even know what home really feels like.
Right.
But just to get back to that abuse part, that's where I feel like oftentimes those abusers take advantage of us that may be vulnerable, because they know that we haven't had a father at home. Our childhood was broken up. We've been abused. We've been in other relationships, other toxic relationships where we weren't supported. We weren't taken care of. We felt vulnerable, and oftentimes our abusers, or those abusers, will use that as a tool to just, bring you along as long as possible, really just trying to say like, okay, I got her now. And once I get her in this web or in this trap, then I know it's going to be hard for her to leave, and then I can do whatever I want. And that's when we want to, I've often had conversations where we've gotten to that point where we're, kind of in that web, but there's also those red flags that may have been a year or 6 months ago, where it was like, okay, so he's trying to control what I'm doing, where I'm going, how my hair looks, and then I, like, little by little, I'm feeling so uncomfortable and I can't be myself, and I feel so closed off. And I know that, I want to go out with my friends, but I know if I go out, then there's going to be like a number of messages, a number of calls, and then when I get back, I'm going to be interrogated and I'm going to feel so bad, although I did nothing.
Right.
So,
I do want to put a disclaimer there for people before you guys start jumping off the cliff saying it's not always guys that are abusers.
Right.
So, and Tamara didn't want to just only signify. And you want to clear that up, because I'm not making excuses that we do know a majority of abusers are men. But that does not mean that there is no women abusers also who manipulate things and stuff like that. So,
yeah, that's absolutely right. And I apologize. I'm taking a stance of, as a woman,
right.
My partner preference would be a man, and so that's really the only reason why I'm kind of attributing that part. But women can also be abusive, and that's and domestic violence and being in toxic relationships doesn't necessarily have to be with a lover.
Right. It can be with a coworker.
It can be with a coworker. It can definitely be with a family member. And I think that family member can often be a more difficult relationship to break away from, because you often feel like you owe them something, or you owe it to that relationship, or that family member, that love that you always, I feel like I always grew up like it's family first, regardless, like, and that regardless part gets a little tricky, because it's like, is that regardless of how they treat me?
Right. And it's not. But it gets a lot of passes. It gets a lot of passes. Brother,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
That's under the rug is crazy. And personally for me, that is something that has been a little more difficult in my adulthood, because I think that I've always grown up thinking that regardless, I know my family has my back. And if there's an issue, it's an issue. And it's an issue today. Today is Tuesday. And then when we see each other on Sunday, we need to just forget about that, because that's my family and we gonna always be together. But that is some toxic stuff, and you shouldn't have to accept that. So when I say that violence and mentally abusive people, obviously physically abusive, emotionally abusive people, those relationships doesn't have to be a partner. It can be friendships, co-workers, and family members. And it is up to us to acknowledge it, no matter how hard it is, and set that boundary.
You brought up and I think laying the groundwork when you have toxic family members. And what we mean by toxic family members, if you have family members that has always told you that you're no good, you ain't nothing going to be none of that, and all the negative spew that comes out of their mouth, like whatever you get is never good enough. Whatever you do, you should have done better. So all that negative stuff really lays the ground to you into internal development of yourself, to the external development to someone else as a partner.
Yeah.
Because but then you take your frustration, you take your frustration out on partners, because your groundwork was set with such toxicity.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what we know. That's what we learn. Like as a child, really, I mean, if you take it back, like very remedial, I know English because my family taught me English. In my household, that's the only thing I learned. So that's the language I learned, you know? And so if I was taught my ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. I was taught how to say thank you. I was taught that these are manners. I say yes, please, and thank you. Yes, ma'am. I address people, you know, I presume older than me as Miss, Mister. Like those are things that we are taught, but also we learn how to address people, how to deal with our emotions, you know, like how to live and react to different situations by what we are taught, no matter the age. So
Right.
things that we are taught and not necessarily told to us, but that we're shown is important. So actions often speak louder than words. Like I can tell, I don't necessarily have to have a conversation with someone personally to know that they are crazy, you know, as a form, meaning like everything isn't quite there, and that may not also be someone I want to associate with.
And it's a time, and remember, there's a timing issue. It may not be what you can associate with right now, maybe later in life, but at this point in a person's life, yeah.
And again, I just go to kind of go back to the things that we've learned and we all learn different things. I think that, like for me, I went to school, I was a broadcast journalism major, so I had to learn not only how to speak and write, but also how to talk to different people, how to, I had a great opportunity I went to Temple and I'm from Baltimore, so Philly, not the most suburban of cultures,
Right.
but how to adapt and how to make sure that I'm personable no matter the environment I'm in, and making sure that people, not only that they could relate to me, but they felt comfortable with sharing their story, especially if I'm interviewing them or I want to get information from them. And that was something that I had to learn, and I had to adapt and know how to carry myself. But that's also something that, again, that I learned. It wasn't something that was just
fell from the sky on top of you.
Like, oh, okay, thank you. You know, and a lot of things often, which we don't really take advantage of, but God has blessed us without any doing of our own, not because we deserved it, but He's blessed us with different responsibilities and different traits that we may not even necessarily know we have. But when we get in said situations, just like, you know,
do you think is there something? And I'll have to take my personal opinion is I don't think a person that's being abused. I don't believe in my heart that they should take credit for the abuse or part of it.
No. And that's the thing. I don't think
you've heard that before. Like, you know, some of this fault is yours, and I'm like, whoa. I mean, I literally don't agree with that.
I literally don't either. I don't know a person, and I would bet my life's worth and whatever that equates to, that no one is like signing up, okay, yes, you know, I can't wait to be abused. Are you going to abuse me? Okay, thank you so much. Like, no one's signing up for that. I do think that we may allow different behaviors to continue to happen because of different things. So it could be our environment, what some insecurities that we may have, that we may allow said action to continue to happen. But I wouldn't say that it's our fault that it continues to happen. But the blessing in that is that we have the ability to get out of that situation.
Right.
You know, as long as we are breathing and as long as we're able to communicate, et cetera, we have that ability to get out. And it's the testimony on the other side that that makes it worth it. Not only is it for you, but of course, if you have children, you have family and people that's looking up to you, you also owe it to them to get out of that situation because, this life is short. And I think we all have seen physically within the last year or so how short it is. Not that we didn't recognize it before,
right.
But it's just this pandemic has allowed this to, kind of really come in front of us. But life is short and we so deserve to be happy and to live the life that we deserve to live.
I want to thank people listening to Voices to be Heard. We're going to be doing this twice a month. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer. This is Tamara Randolph. And talk about Kept a little bit before we move on and how people can reach you, because you started your nonprofit. You do other things besides play softball, but, She's Kept is very important to you.
Yeah, so I started Kept keeping every possibility tangible. I started that in honor of my mom. So my mom was killed by her husband, and it was a traumatic experience, obviously, for my family. And I actually witnessed the murder. So he stabbed her to death, and I had to go and testify in court, etc., sit through his testimonies, and he said that he did it because he thought he was cheating on her. All of that obviously makes no sense. My mom had just given birth to my little sister. So literally 2 weeks. So my sister was born July 10th. He killed her July 29th. So 19 days.
Right.
After she gave birth, and this was in 95. So I imagine right now, I think women, because we are the bomb, we get in, push humans out of our body, and then they send us back home almost same day. I think she may have been in the hospital, all of that to say, she may have been in the hospital a few more days. So all of that to say, like, it just didn't make sense either way. But so just to kind of long story short, I started it in memory of my mom. I feel like at that time, there were not enough resources for women to seek the help that they needed. Like my mom, if you knew her, she was a strong Black woman. My mom also played softball. I'm a huge sport fan because of her, so you cannot talk any sports in front of her. Same thing for me. Okay, if we're going to talk about sports, then I need to also be included. And I will interject myself because, y'all guys be trying to talk around, and I don't like that. So, but that's a story for another day. But anyway, she was just a strong woman. So you wouldn't think that she would be the type of woman that would allow a man to abuse her, and ultimately kill her. So there were a few other instances where he had abused her. He had gone to jail. He had actually flipped her over a railing while she was pregnant with my sister, went to jail. And whatever type of stuff he was feeding her some good lines, unfortunately. But she got back with him, stayed with him, and ended up marrying him actually at the courthouse. But I created Kept because I feel like at that time my mom did not have the resources and wasn't comfortable with the resources that were available, where she can go and get the help and not feel judged or not feel like she was the only one going through.
That's the difference. Comfortability. Yeah. It's not just, some people just say, oh, there's resources out here. That's like saying there's fast foods everywhere. I don't feel comfortable going there. And if I don't feel comfortable, I don't care what's available. I won't put my foot in that door.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not going to McDonald's, but I will do 4 more miles for Chick-fil-A. It's that type of
thing. Yeah.
And I will forever, as long as I'm living, I want to make sure that I am providing that safe haven, even if it's for 1 or 2 or 5 people. I want to make sure there's a place where women can feel not only supported, they can hear my story, hopefully be encouraged, and know that there's at least one person in their corner. And I can be reached shekept.org, so SHEKEPT.org, and you can also reach me, Tamara at shekept.org, if you want to send me an email. And I'm also on Facebook and She Kept, so you can find me if you want to send me a direct message. You can definitely do so there, and I think we'll provide some details in the descriptions for these broadcasts. But I'm happy to go to bat if there's any resources that you can't find on my site, or of any of the resources here. Please let me know, and I'm happy to go and dig and find that for you. But it took me a while to get to a place where I felt comfortable not only sharing my story time and time again, but making sure that I was at a place where I could be of help and not feeling overwhelmed or not feeling like I wasn't doing enough, because I think I was, God had kind of laid this, kept on my heart probably 10 years before I even started it. And it was because I was just thinking of, like, I want to make sure that when I come out, I'm reaching thousands of women. And, that's not my ministry right now. And I'm open to wherever God leads me. But I think that if it's just the one or the few people that I am able to touch, and my story and my testimony is something that gets them out of that situation, then I feel like my life's role and goal is met.
Coming from an abuse or seeing or witnessing abuse and all the trauma we go through, I want to make this very clear. I think people need to get some professional help. I think people need to go in and open this up, because when you carry this over, when you say, I've cleaned it up, none of this bothers me, and all of a sudden you enter yourself into a relationship and all these different things are hitting you mostly in your lower gut, right? And that's we call it the second brain. But if it's hitting you down there, it is from a historical issue. It's not from a present day issue. It's coming from a history that's regurgitating in your internal. Now, I'm not to say that the now isn't bad, but there's a lot of internal issues, eternal emotions that you have not come to understand yet. And that has to be cleared up.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't, I probably started therapy maybe 8 years ago, 6 to 8 years ago, when my mom first passed. I did go to therapy. I was much younger, so it was kind of like forced, kind of mandated. We did like, different activities. We went on camping trips, stuff like that. But at that time, I was just like, oh, okay. I feel like this is just like busy work, something to off of, not really to address. But things that I've taken from before I went to therapy, it was always a mandate for me. Like, I don't allow you to talk to me any type of way. So like, if it's, I'm not a fusser per se, like I'm not raising my voice, rather. I'll have a deep conversation, but I'm not raising my voice. I don't curse, so I don't use curse words and all of that. And I don't allow that either toward me. And I make sure that everyone, that I...
one of those flag words I have that's stuck in my head, and we have talked about this before, is "you should." That phrase, it's got knife. It's got a sharpness to it. It's got it. There's a lot of pain behind the deliverance of "you should."
You should, and like, I need to ask if I'm allowed to, as an adult. Like, I that. It just eats me up alive. And
why didn't you tell me? Is that another one?
Yeah. Like, I think that, like, I think a conversation, again, we talk about communication, and especially with your partner, communication is important, and I feel like I didn't know that you were going to do that. That's kind of more of a proper like conversational piece, like but I've had conversations with a friend or two or three, and they're saying like, I need to see if they'll allow me, talking about their significant,
right,
allow me to do this. And I'm like,
allow.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, like, like that would be something like as a child.
Yeah.
I understand that in reference, but like as a grown adult,
allow.
Goes to work and is very successful, can do her own thing or his own thing. That allow part just eats me up, because that's just like, no, something is not right there.
But it gets hidden by the caring package. I just want to make sure that you're okay, right?
I appreciate you making sure I am okay, but you're not going to allow me. Okay, that's a couple things.
Right.
You never allow me to do anything because I'm not asking you for permission.
Right.
And it's where that gets a little tricky for you. Because if you think you need to allow me to do something, this isn't going to work. Now, will I consult you? And can we, agree or confer and converse about whatever the decision is?
Well, wait a minute. Isn't consulting, when you think of, and if you change the word to allow, and listen, people, this is not semantics. These are very important. This is what conversations is. If I just want to inform you, and I was talking with one of my daughters. She goes, well, I like to inform her mate. She goes, I like to inform her where I'm going. I'm like, but doesn't that leave it open for interpretation saying, don't go there?
No. I think the inform, like I'm giving you information, so you have the information. I'm letting you know where I'm going if you need me, if my phone dies, if I don't, something happens and you don't hear from me, where I was. But am I asking you if I can go to said place awaiting, an answer, yay or nay? That's the part that gets tricky. So giving you and letting you know that that's where I'm going, I don't think there's a problem with that.
It's probably a fine line. Because if we play the scenario out, hey Tamara, I'm just letting you know I'm going golfing, right? And wait a minute, I want you to be the negative of you don't want me to go golfing.
Right, but you didn't ask me the question.
Yeah, but I'm letting you know I'm going golfing, and be the negative of not letting me go golfing.
Okay, but I don't want you to go golfing.
So now I'm going to ask you why not, how come, and you give me all your reasons with the relationship we're in. Going, I just don't find it. Right now we got other things to do. This wasn't planned. If you had planned it, I don't see. So all those things can be legitimately said, and yet that's a caring package. But yet something is telling you to control me. That's tough.
Yeah, I see what you mean. That is tough, but the way I feel about that is just I'm letting you know what is going on. And you are also open
to say, don't go.
But that also doesn't mean that I am not going to go because you said that. But like me saying that I am not going to make said plans or I'm not going to go until I get the permission from you.
Right.
Like a permission slip at school, like you got to get it. I did that. I'm done with that.
Right.
I'm done with permission slips. So I think in a relationship, I think it's important to have communication. I don't think there's anything wrong with, letting your significant other know what you're doing, even if things change. So, like I'm going to, after work, I normally get off at 5, probably going to, go grab something to eat or go to happy hour or whatever after work. Should be home soon. and then, soon is open,
Right, right,
then
right.
maybe at 7 or so that you just do another update, not because not because I need the permission, but I just want to be considerate because maybe you wanted to do something, or maybe there are other things going on maybe I wasn't aware of. But why can't we just be on the same page about where we are or what's going on? Not like I'm keeping tabs on you all day, like
But
I need.
here's I think that's where those discussion go sideways, because you're looking at it as a loving intent of letting someone know because I care and I love you, I want to be with you. But the other person's like, you didn't tell me you didn't tell me you were going to be this late. So those words come out as a sharp knife, and they're cutting. Those are cut words.
Yeah, for sure, because anything can be manipulated to
Right.
the opposite, of what your intentions were. So I think knowing your partner and communicating
is important.
I think, is important. So that if I say this, regardless of the delivery, it's going to mean that it's going to be a problem, then I'm probably just not going to say it, and it's oftentimes that can happen. But I think, knowing your partner and being open to who your partner is and understanding, the way they communicate and the way they flow will help that partnership. But when it gets to regardless of how I say this or what I want to do or, etc., like I got to get the permission part as an adult, I just think that's abuse.
I do too. What about, I think when we talk about communication and we are not able to get off this wheel of blame, right? That to me is also domestic disturbance and an abuse. When a person wants to constantly stay on a wheel, because that's self-misunderstanding. They're not fully understanding who they are yet or what they are trying to convey. They could be in the word desert or something like something's not clicking if we keep going around this. Well, you said and you didn't, and it's you. That is also a disturbance in domestic.
Yeah, I think definitely a disturbance. I think that what couples and in relationships you figure out. So oftentimes there are people that need to be right or need to be, regardless of the situation, like I have to win this argument. But oftentimes it's, we kind of hear it often, but it's okay to disagree. Like I think as an individual, I already know that I'm not going to see things exactly how you do. And for me, I am very open to understanding where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I want to know where you're coming from because that'll help me help myself really.
Right.
I know that if, once it's at night, you get a little anxiety or whatever, kind of whatever it is. If I know that that's the way this one thing triggers you or the way you relate to different situations, I want to make sure that I, as your partner, am sensitive to that. Not that and I don't think there's anything wrong with
no.
Again, as we kind of mentioned before, I think as a partner, we should want to be the better half of, our partner. We want to, where we all don't have it 100% together, and there's different percentages that we can help build and uplift each other in and, help bring pieces together. I think that's the true sign and essence of a healthy relationship where we both know, like if I'm tired, okay, there's little things that I can do that'll be good. And I'm probably going to fall asleep, and then there's that.
And then I want to stipulate this for men listening, coming from men. I think men fall into that domestic violence trap because they feel like they're not adequate enough. They're feeling some sense of fear within themselves, some sense of inadequacy, how that really works, and it comes out very bitey, very snappy, very judgmental, and always trying to win an argument. I think that does come from a lot of men, especially if they with a woman who's got her stuff together, right? It is about where do I fit in your life if I feel like I don't fit? And that disturbance creates this, I'm always feeling left out somehow.
Yeah, I think that, oftentimes, and I mean, because you mentioned it, I think men can easily or may often put different projections on us women, like, because you are insecure, that's also not my fault.
Right,
like,
right.
You were insecure before you met me, and you tried to put on the front as if you were not. And now that you're, comfortable, now it's my fault. Now, all of a sudden, that you're insecure when that insecurity happened way before me. And that can be vice versa. Like us women. I think as a human species, I think there are different levels in our life where we may be insecure in different areas.
Right.
And I also, that's just a human thing. Like I could be 100% secure in the way I do my job, but then if I have to go present to, like a room full of thousands of people, it may be a little anxiety or I may feel a tad bit insecure. That doesn't mean I don't know my stuff.
Right.
It just may mean like I just need a little more encouragement. I got to talk myself through a few more things than normal. But I think that is a human trait to be insecure, and feel a little anxiety about different things, but it can contribute to people taking advantage of their insecurities and projecting that onto, their partners or someone else. It doesn't necessarily have to be their lover, but it can be, if we go back to family members or their friends, and they don't necessarily deserve that. And that's right. You kind of hinted at it before, but that's when therapy comes definitely in. I mentioned I started therapy just a few years ago, I feel like, but very important for me because I think as a person, I had always tried to be one that didn't just respond
all the time. Right.
Yeah, I often think I try and think things through regardless of the situation, so like if someone says something to me, I want to respond, right away, right. Especially if they trying to like test where I'm from type of thing. Like, first of all, I'm from Baltimore, and that's kind of where I want to go first, but being the, woman I am, I'd be like, okay, so let me just think this through. So did they really want to test me that way? Okay. That really what they want. Okay. And then boom. Most times I'm like, okay, they didn't want that in their life.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So I often try to think things through, but just not to make light of the situation, but really those are conversations that I have in my mind.
Yeah, in my internal mind, right. Yeah.
Or yeah. But I think, again, therapy is important. My therapist is great. She has allowed me to see how the things that I've endured during my childhood and have not properly addressed over the years have contributed to different relationships that I've had and different trauma. All the different types of trauma that I've endured during my life have contributed to the woman I am today. Not that it's all bad, but there are a lot of things that I've just suppressed that have negatively affected me personally. Not that I'm, out here being a horrible person to everyone else, but to me, my personal self, like, have I properly taken care of myself mentally, physically, emotionally? No, I had really neglected myself for so long because I was so worried about, and I think it's just part of my nature, but about how everyone else is. And are you okay?
Right.
Regardless of how you're feeling. Are you okay? What do you need?
What can I do for you?
Yeah, what can I do for you? And not taking that same stance on myself. So again, therapy is very important. There are a lot of therapists that are not only well versed in dealing with trauma, but that are well versed in just helping talk you through things. So there oftentimes it's that neutral party you need to kind of address some things and to get it out. And I didn't really know that this one issue was an issue.
Right.
Till my therapist asked me the question, and then I'm talking aloud, and I'm like, "Yeah, this sounds crazy coming out of my mouth." But here we are.
Here we are. And I'm glad you're able to be in that space. I'm too also in that space, and I think I also want to talk to people when they say properly address. Here's what I hear also is like getting to my therapeutic mind. You may address something, you may have talked with someone a couple of times, but properly means you've gone through it. Mm-hmm. Like you literally pulled it apart with all the fabric. You've gone through it. Because some people say, I talked to my therapist once before about an issue. And that was 5 years ago. Well, did you properly go through it? Well, they think they did, and yet it's still regurgitating itself in other forms. And recognizing that has a lot to do with that emotional connection that we must understand about ourselves. How are we feeling about this? What does it trigger, and where does it go? Yeah. Voices to be heard. We know there's other voices out there that needs to be heard. We know that we are here waiting for you to be heard. You can always contact the show or talk to us or inbox us and say, I too want to be heard, because everyone's got a story about a domestic disturbance out there that they're either struggling with or working through, and you're not alone. And this is why we do these shows, to let you hear a conversation about letting you know that there's some ideas, there's some possibilities, there's some resources with shekept.org, and there's my Dr. Paul, but to know that you are not alone. Your voice is important to us.
Yes, your voice is important to us, and we would love, as you said, Dr. Paul, we would love to hear your story. On our next show, we want to, because it's our individual stories, which I've learned that resonates with someone else, and you think it's like your own story and it's so unique, but oftentimes there are other people that are going through something very similar, and that one, your one story, your one testimony could resonate with someone and pull them out of that situation. And it's not until they hear something like, well, yeah, that's also me.
That's also me.
Yeah. So, again, it's always a pleasure to join you, Dr. Paul. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on and share my story and just talk about, real life things and, talking through different scenarios and giving our individual perspectives, because as you be a man and me a woman, we just have different outlooks on life, and then our lives just takes us through different paths and different experiences, and it's always great to kind of share, different things, and again to let our experiences and our just thoughts just be there for someone to grab hold to and hopefully learn from, get the motivation to get to that happy place, because again, we all deserve to be happy. Like, let's make an effort for our last few weeks of this year. Let's just devote that to making sure that we are as happy as possible.
God bless you, girl. You're my sister, and we'll be visiting with you guys again after Thanksgiving. And we know that this holiday's coming up. Some families are going to be together. We already talked about that toxic family member. How I'm going to help you to deal with that toxic family member. Just listen. Because if that family member is that toxic, they're actually giving you the courage to just listen, because they're shedding some pain that they're going through. But don't be the punching bag for that pain.
Don't be the punching bag, and you don't have to be there.
Right. Right.
Thing, like, I feel like as the family member, you feel like you have to be around or you have to be associated because they are your family, and you don't. And that's as the young folks say, period. I think they add poo on the end, so period poo.
Good night, people. Have a great evening.
Good night, everyone. Love you.
Thank you, dear. Have a great night.
You too. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.